Hello and welcome back. Today, I got a real basket case for you. This Eterna Matic has seen better days. The case has really been beaten up. You can see the lug is completely bent out of shape. The dial's pretty nice. Crystal's gone. I was thinking, I have better projects to work on than this. But I'm kind of I like a challenge once in a while, and the dial's really nice. Look at those markers, and that's really good. There's only one scratch down here, which is, if you get a crystal on, it's not going to be that drastic. But the case is really battered. Let's have a look inside. Excuse me, I got a cold, so I kind of sound a bit different to usual. So the serial number in the case back, Eterna Watch Co, Switzerland. This is Calibre 1414, which is nice. I guess the first thing we can do with this is get the hands off, and let's see. We've got to get the movement out of the case. The movement's in really good condition, actually. In the rotor is fine. Usually they have slack in them, but so that bodes very good for this project. Let's see. Here comes the movement, comes plopping out. So I guess this dial used to be silver at some point, but exposure to nicotine, sun, and age in general has made the lacquer turn kind of a caramel. If you look in my video feed, you can see I did another Eterna Matic, which had gotten this caramel effect on the dial, and I really like it. I got that gold one from Sweden, which I'm probably going to do one day, but make much more sense to service that one than this. But I don't know, when I look in my drawer, I tend to gravitate to the worst projects, because those are the ones I'd like to get fixed the most and bring back. This project is determined a little bit what I can do with the case, because the movement and dial are actually pretty good. I would like to keep the case and movement together, even though parts from this could easily be used on another watch with a severely scratched dial or something like that. But I'd like to keep this together, and I'd like to salvage this watch. These movements are really nice. Look at that. I'll put this to the side for now, and we'll have another look at this case. And the major issue here is this lug. It's completely bent, and straighten it is going to look twisted, and it's properly scratched up. And somebody's really had fun with this, falling off things and whatnot. Like, how did they even get this gouge down the side here? See how that's moved the metal over here. So essentially what I'm going to do with this case is I'm going to try and manually straighten the lugs. And I guess the lug width I want to get is 18 mil. At the moment it's just under 16. Or 17 maybe, we'll see. As I hear 17. The worst bend is here, so I think 18 would be correct, because we've got the bend there. When this is a straight lug we can go after, and both these lugs are bent here. So I'm going to straighten this a little bit, this quite drastically, and this one a little bit, and then afterwards I'm going to bring this case down to my polishing machine, which also has a burnisher on it. I'm going to try and massage this steel back out so I can try and fill this in by moving the metal from here to here, and probably having to slightly recut a surface on all these surfaces, and able to kind of, because no matter if I straighten this, it's going to look, it's going to, you're going to see the distortions in the metal. So before I even service the movement, I'm going to see if I can salvage this case. So, we've kind of beaten the lugs somewhat back to shape where they should be. This would now fit an 18mm strap. Unfortunately, the sides look like they've been chewed by my dog, so we need to see what we can do. Refinishing this as a, here we have, in my case, well, no pun intended, but in this case, it's kind of throwaway or refinish situation, because it's beyond patina when it's bent and deformed. And what I'm going to try and do is, first I'm going to try and burnish out as many as these deep gouges, scratches. This I'm going to try and massage the steel back into the middle, and then we'll have to recut after that. If I had a micro welder, of course that's something to do with time, money, and what you can put in. I'm a one-man operation, so you've got to choose your battles, but I would love to have a micro welder one time in the future. Somebody wants to come help me set that up, I'll be more than happy for that. But for now, I cannot fill this in with a welder. I'd love to do that, because then I wouldn't really be removing any material at that point, but because that's not the reality, I'm going to see what I can do with my polishing machine. First, I'm going to remove the pendant tube, because when we are polishing, it's going to get a high gloss finish, and we might as well do the entire case, as it would look very weird if only your lugs were shiny and the rest of the case didn't look very good. So here's my newest toy. It's a dual tool polishing machine. It's basically a glorified and quite expensive standard spinning tool, but what I do like about it is that it has these cut discs, so you can see what you're working with. So if we turn this on, you can see when you're working on stuff. And another benefit is that you have a straight surface you're working on, unlike if you're just polishing on a wheel, you can't really see what you're doing, and you also have chances of rounding things more easily than this. Even though, don't get me wrong, professionals can do amazing work with traditional polishing machines, but for me, which is a bit of an amateur, I find this helps me quite a bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is use these burnishing discs, which more than actually polish, moves the metal around. What I'm going to try and do is get the worst of these gouges to kind of fill in themselves, and when we've gone over the entire case, removing or mixing in the worst of the scratches, we're going to start polishing it up. And I'm predicting I'm going to lose the facets on the top of the lugs. So when that happens, I'm then going to try and recut them with these lapping discs. And we'll see how good it gets. I know I'm not going to get the effect of a £12,000 lapping machine, which is what we all dream about. But again, this comes down like with the micro welder. If my budget was higher, I could do better work. And also it's kind of a one-man operation, so it's limited time what I can do. I'd love to spend a month on each watch getting everything absolutely perfect, but I would also have to charge accordingly. So this is a new thing for me. I have not really been into polishing cases. I've always been kind of anti-polishing, because you remove facets, you remove material, but I've realized that people do like their cases nice. I've kind of had a tendency to send stuff like this off to a professional, but their waiting time is up to 6 months. So I decided, why not delve into this myself. I've got about 100 hours into this now, practicing on, well, junk cases like this, trying to figure out good ways of preserving facets. And it's not coming in focus here, but yeah, just practicing on junk cases, and now I'm quite happy to go on to a case like this, and we'll see how it turns out. You can see how this reflects in the light from the reshaping and the original damage, so I'm not sure how good this will get, but hopefully we'll get something that will be decent and wearable and turn into a beautiful watch again. Fingers crossed. This is how the case turned out. It's far from perfect. To be honest, I'm kind of beating myself up a bit. I should have been able to do a better job, but this is as good as it got. The upside is that the surface is very nice and even and shiny, which doesn't say much, but we still have the nice facet going around here. We didn't remove any of that. The case back kind of got a touch up for all the nasty scratches around here. I just did a brush finish over here to kind of hide the worst of the scratches, because I wanted to keep the serial number down here. If I was to refinish this would all go away. You can see it's a little bit rounded on the facet going around. I should do a lathe, and still some of the deep scars here, but it's all limited to what you can do if you don't have a micro welder and whatnot, but hopefully to be improved. You can see the logs are nice and straight at least, so that's a positive. The top of the bezel, I didn't remove any material of that, and that's nice and shiny and even going around. There's no removable bezel on this. This is a one-piece case. If I should have played it safe, I could have removed the facet totally on the top, just made it flat. That would have looked very nice and clean. I did try to kind of put in a new angle by polishing on the sides, which it's all right. It's all right. It's not perfect. You can see that the line that goes around here is okay, but I'm a little bit off here, and well, this one's pretty decent really. It's hard to tell because it's all highly polished at the moment, but they're not as sharp as I'd like them to be. I need to find a way to get these cuts much sharper, but it's not just a question of that. The thing is, if I was to put this flat on a lapping cutter as well, I would cut away the corner of the round bezel, so it's a little bit of a give and take. But what I am happy about is that the general lugs, you see there's a tiny bit of deformation still in the steel, but very little. If I was to cut this much more down, we're also removing material, so I needed to kind of find a balance for that. But again, I'm quite happy with the finish on the sides. The general shine is there. It's fairly sharp still underneath the lugs. You can see the tips are pretty good. Happy with that. A bit out of focus again, sorry about that. I don't refinish in between the lugs yet because I kind of need a smaller mandrel tool to get in there. I don't have that yet, so I kind of do one feet a step. But at the same time, if you go in between here, you risk rounding off corners of your lugs, and that would be an absolute disaster. But considering this case was pretty much a throwaway to start off with, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll proceed with the taking apart the movement, and as usual we're going to do this in time lapse, because putting the movement back together in real time will show pretty much the same, only in the reverse. Good stuff. We have cleaned the movement, we have fitted the mainspring in the barrel, and I've fitted the cap jewels to the escapement so that the balance moves freely. I'm happy with the result. Very cool in-house shock protection on these Eternas. I do like them. Later they did go over to both KIF and Inca, but on these ones they have their own. See, the base plate on this Calibre 1414 is very nicely decorated. You have a starburst circular finish coming out from this level and this level, and here you got some perlage put in under the gear train. So for being a fairly mass-produced movement, it's nicely finished, on par with, for example, Rolex or Omega, I would say. The reason I'm not filming every single detail putting the movement back together, like putting the shock jewels back together and those things, is I'm just going to try and keep this video a little bit shorter as we've put in the case polishing aspect of it. So there's the second wheel, there's the barrel. So I'm going to put the barrel bridge in place. Before I put the barrel bridge in place, I've got to put in the ratchet wheel, and the ratchet wheel actually is attached to this, so you put this zigzag lever on the underside here, like so. I'll put a tiny bit of grease on that so that can work properly. So this comes in here, and then the wheel comes on the underside, and you actually secure this with a left-hand threaded screw that comes up through the wheel. So I'm going to do that under the microscope, like so, and then that's in place. So this will zigzag back and forth, which is a design for the automatic device later on. Anyway, now I can fit the barrel bridge onto the barrel. And then we can secure that. Barrel bridge secured, 2 screws. Then we can fit the gear train. going to put a tiny bit of oil on the sweep second wheel, so in this case will be the 4th wheel, and then we can put it in place. Next we can fit the gear train bridge on top of this. That will come in here. I'm going to line up the pivots under the microscope and secure the bridge. So the gear train bridge has been secured. Next we can fit the ratchet wheel. And as I tighten that, you can also see that the movement moves freely. Then I can turn the movement around and start putting the setting and winding mechanism back in place. I've fitted a generic crown on this stem. But, if somebody has a signed crown for me, let me know. I'd love to buy it. All these parts are difficult to get a hold of these days. I've seen some on eBay, so I might order one later on. But for now, this will work. I've already got the setting lever in place. So interestingly, I've just discovered a broken part, and that is 2 of the teeth on the winding pinion. So I'm going to go over to my donor box and see if I can find a new one. That's when having a box like this with lots of cannibalized watches. I bought this lot off an auction, and there's just so many useful parts in here, including a new pinion. So we'll put a little bit of, tidy that up with Rodico, it's clean. So I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the teeth. Of course, a tiny bit of wear on it because it is used, but it does match the wear on everything else in this movement, so hopefully it will work fine. If not, we'll continue looking. I think this will be okay. So general rule, as always, a bit of grease on anything that slides to reduce friction. That includes the sliding pinion and the winding pinion where it engages with the sliding pinion. I'm just going to pop a little bit of grease where the yoke, which is this, the yoke lever engages with the setting lever. So what I did forget is actually fit the winding stem. Should do that. So right now it is Friday evening, and today is finished. I'm going to go home, have some dinner, and I'll come back. I would have loved to have done this watch before the weekend, but that's not the case. So I'll just come back after the weekend and finish this up fresh on Monday. Hopefully my cold will have dissipated by then. What I'm going to try and do is, before I leave, I'm just going to see if I can fit the winding setting mechanism, pallet fork, and see if I can get it running, because then I can give it a test run on the bench over the weekend. Got this yoke spring here, which is fairly powerful, so I'll try to make sure that this doesn't ping off. Like so. Setting lever spring. Look at that, the winding pinion is working, so that's good. That is the correct part. Also, it would help if I secure the setting lever. That's nice. I'll just turn the movement around. I'm going to quickly fit the pallet fork and the pallet bridge. Oil the pallet fork, which entails putting a little bit of sticky oil on the pallets. Disperse that over the escape wheel so that the sliding surface has a little bit of lubrication. And then we'll fit the balance. And then I'll go home for tonight. And you won't notice that. I'll be right back because it will be Monday morning when I finish this watch off. So that's the pallet secured under the pallet bridge, or balance pallet cock, as it's a single screw hold down construction. Now we can fit the balance. You want the impulse pin to engage properly with the end of your balance, your pallet cock. Sorry. See, it's Friday evening, I can't speak. You want the impulse pin on the balance to engage with the pallet fork in the correct angle. And this movement, it's telling me it wants to live, it wants to tick. And we just need to get this in like so. And then we can secure that screw. That looks very promising. Nice big balance wheel on this. Amplitude looks decent enough. Let's put it on the time grapher, see what it does, and yeah, then we can finish the rest of the watch. Test the movement on the time graph. So that's the dial down position, and we got an amplitude of 242. I haven't put the auto winding mechanism in. It usually puts a little bit more pressure on the mainspring, adding the top amplitude, but 244 on an original mainspring of the two-part system mainspring. I'm pretty happy with that. It's fairly straight gear train. The hairspring seems to be alright. Slight waves, but this is set to very fine at the moment, so it will pick up any disturbance. Let's turn it around to dial up position. Let that settle. It's alright, about the same amplitude and not much positional variation. Let's do crown down. Do expect it to change a bit now. Let's let that settle again. Actually pretty good. That's very good. It's Monday, and I had a good relaxing weekend with the family, but on the back of my mind, I've just been excited to come back and finish this Eterna off. You could see it was performing fairly well on the time graph, good enough for this watch. Now I'm going to put together the auto winder mechanism, which is quite straightforward on these. So the intermediate auto winder wheels come fastened underneath the bridge, like so, and you just turn a lever here to hold them in place. That's simple. Have these two reverser wheels. Very nice construction developed by Eterna and ETA. From when back ETA was a part of a part of Eterna. Actually, I think ETA had been sold off, or there were different Cobras, but they're still working together. I'm not a historian per se. I'm sure somebody can enlighten us. I do like all the different layers on this, like a staircase going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 steps up to the top. Very cool design. Very nice finish as well. Look at that. It's nice and clean. We're almost there. I've got a couple of wheels on the gear train side to fit. Let's see, I've got to secure the stem. Like so. Got the cannon pinion. That's of course it's driven by what I believe is the 4th wheel on the other side that comes in here and drives the that kind of turns into the center wheel through this, and the clutch cannon pinion here can require a little bit of lubrication. And I'm going to put a droplet of oil for the intermediate hour wheel, the minute wheel. The pinion in the middle. And we've got this little post for the intermediate setting wheel. And on this little pinion here that goes in, you can see it has a beveled edge. The beveled edge goes down to engage with the sliding pinion. If you don't do that the right way around, you're going to have a very rough rough feel when you set the time. We have this little bridge holding it all in place. Very nice. That's back together. So we have the, now we can set the time. It's very nice friction on the cannon pinion, which is good. That means that's got plenty of life left in it. And we can wind the movement. So when this is fully wound like this, you don't really need to continue winding. That's the sliding part of the mainspring is now sliding up against the barrel wall, and it cannot get more fully wound than what it is. So when you come to a point where you're winding, it will be very easy to wind, and then you get the resistance, you stop, because there's no point going further than that. You don't even have to fully wind it. The auto winder will do that as you wear it. We're going to go straight over to fitting the dial and hands. So let's get the dial and hands on. I was struggling a bit because the stem kept coming out, and that's because the little shoulder here, which the setting lever pin holds the stem in here, but because of this shoulder is broken, it'll come out in a certain position. So I've got a used but the same length stem, which I've cleaned up, that does not do this. So now we have a chance of actually getting this together and working as it should. Another thing I've done, I've mixed up some kind of aged-like luminous compound in the back of the hands, because that did come out as I took the hands off again now, and I thought it was more stable, but it wasn't. So I might as well just replace it while I'm at it. Some of the original guys will go, no, the original compound is better to have hands with no compound in them at all than replacement stuff. I completely disagree with that and would rather have something that looks good. There we go, dial on. So being a non-date watch, I can pretty much put these hands on wherever I want. Actually, looking at the center of the dial, you can see it's a bit off-center. So I'm actually going to do something which is not fun, but necessary, because I want this to be right. And that is I'm going to reshape the dial feet a little bit. So the dial feet will be straightened up, so the center here will line up in the center. To do that, I'll have to bend the dial feet, all right? So the dial feet will have to come back a little bit. So they have to be pushed maneuvered that direction so that the dial comes a little bit further down. these little details that make a difference sometimes, because if your hour hand is scraping up against the hole in the dial, you're going to lose amplitude. It's not a nice way of doing it. So let's have a look. So how you do that is with your pliers, grab it onto your dial foot, just straighten it up a little bit, make sure you go in the right direction. Just a tiny bit. Hopefully that will be enough to recenter the dial where it should be. There we go, much better. That's flattened out. Now I have lots of space for the hour hand to go in there. So it could go a tiny bit further down, but I'm not going to push it, because if you keep wiggling those back and forth, they're going to break, and then you got to solder on new dial feet and all sorts of stuff can happen then. We'll secure the dial. I'm going to fit the hands, and we'll pop it into its newly refurbished case, or amateurishly polished by me, but it's going to look hopefully better than what it did before. There we have the hands back onto the dial. I do love those really high raised markers, but it does mean you need to have good clearance for the hands. You don't want them to touch. Let's get this into the case. There we go, we got the stem cut to the right height. So the crown's on there, look at that preview. I'll have a closer look in a sec. I'm just going to fit the ball bearing. Fortunately, this ball bearing is in pretty good condition. Sometimes they can develop a bit of slack after their 70 years of service or so, but this one's very good. You can tighten them a bit, so it's not the end of the world if your ball bearing is loose. Beautiful finish on the oscillating weight. Sure that screw is on there well. See how nicely that moves as well. So you got the reverser wheels going to the intermediate wheels, winding wheels underneath here that drives your ratchet wheel. Very nice. Even the details like the click on this movement is very nice. Look at this, the way that's highly polished and done. The qualities of the screws, etc. Just beautiful movements. So put a new gasket on the case back, and I'll put this together. One Eterna Matic back together and ready to be worn. I think it was well worth getting this sorted out. It was my first time polishing a case for a watch which wasn't just for practice, and even though it's nowhere close to as good as some of the professionals out there, I think it's a pretty good effort, and at least our lugs are straight again, and it looks nice. I'm quite happy with it. You can't be too hard on yourself. I see every little defect or fault, but I hope to improve it. There's only so much I could do without cutting away too much material, reshaping it. But the surfaces are fairly straight and they look pretty good. You can even see the light coming off in the different angles. The facet, you have a facet cut in on the side. Again, I would say 85 to 90% there. If you want those super crisp limes, you'll need to get a proper lapping set up, and it's very, very expensive. I'd love to do that, but then again, you've got the challenge of the angle here to here, that if you come, this would start cutting into the bezel. So it's all about compromise and how you do it. So I'm fairly happy the way it turned out. But the important thing is we have a wearable watch. Looks really nice. The dial on this is just spectacular. And yes, the rest of the watch is very shiny now, but as you wear it, it will pick up a bit of patina again, and it will kind of turn back to a used watch, and so say in terms of the case. So it's very shiny for the time being, but considering what it was, and it was pretty much destined in the parts department. Yeah, I could have used a dial in a different case or whatnot, but I think it's nice to put this one back together, and it does look like a great watch again. I'm going to put it on this leather strap, which I think goes all right with the dial. Maybe something darker would look better, I don't know, but for now, that's it. So no more rambling on. If you enjoy this kind of thing, check out the website mitka.co.uk. I'll put a link in the description, and yeah, until next time, have a good one.